Hey, it's Webs here, back with another mercenary build, and it's time to redeem some souls on our way to victory. So originally, today's video was going to be Murlocs featuring Sylvanas, however, the build did not work out. It probably is due to the fact that not all of the mercenaries were completely leveled up, and I'll probably try to revisit the idea in the future. But for now, we're going to do a Sylvanas build inspired by this comment from wolvyakapatch. I had been wanting to do something with Sylvanas for quite a while in Mercenaries. This was actually perfect to salvage the failed attempt at Murlocs for Mercenaries, and I am really grateful that Wolvy decided to actually leave this comment, as it is a really fun build to actually play. Alright, so before we get into the individual mercenary choice discussion, I want to go over the order of the mercenaries placement, just so you get a better idea of how the build operates and where it kind of differs from Wolvy's build that he had suggested in the comment section. So for the order of the individual mercenaries, you want to go Rexxar, followed by Krush, followed by Travish, followed by Murk, followed by Cairne, and then Sylvanas as your big finisher. I try to make it as easy as possible to actually see the visual representation of each build, and so I always try to make sure that they are placed in the order that you want to actually place them down in the little mercenary build list. So where mine and Wolvy's builds actually differ is where Travish is placed down, and the fact that I don't use Varian over Cairne. While I did think the idea of using Varian in this build for retaliation was pretty cool, there were two reasons why I didn't want to use Varian instead of Cairne or even Mukla, which was my earlier builds. This being the fact that A, I didn't have him leveled up and didn't have the time to do it, and B, thought retaliation was too situational, just because you don't always have opponent mercenaries that can actually attack, and there are a lot of caster mercenaries out, which is inherently a glaring weakness for retaliation. So between those two things, I decided to not use Varian as the third unit, and then I used Travish instead, mainly because he synergizes pretty well with the other two beginning units, as you can summon a beast token off of Travish if you really want to. I also had tried out King Mukla instead on the third unit, just because that's an additional token that spawns at the start of the game, and again is additional synergy with King Krush and Rexxar. However, I thought that was a little bit too slow also, and it did come with the downside that Sylvanas sometimes couldn't even get her redeemed souls cast off, which is why in the end I ended up using Cairne instead of King Mukla, just so I could use the endurance aura in order to make Sylvanas even quicker and thus get at least one buff out on herself before she actually got to attack. Now with that being said, let's actually get into the individual discussion. Rexxar is the first mercenary for the build, and he's the central key point of the first half of the build through beast synergy with his Mama Bear Claws equipment, which is the same equipment from the Shadow Beast build that I had posted before. Rexxar does have a more important skill in this build instead of just being used for his equipment, which is Animal Companion. This is one of the reasons why you're actually running Rexxar in the build, as this allows you to generate a token to then power up your Sylvanas later in the game, and the higher level this is, the more damage that your tokens are actually going to do, and thus the less that you have to rely on buffing up Sylvanas a bunch towards the end of the game to actually win. So for leveling up, if you don't already have this unit from the previous build that I had posted, I would say level up the Mama Bear Claws first, followed by the Animal Companion, and then Killing Command as the third option, just so you have some way to do a bunch of damage while you control beasts, which shouldn't be that hard for the first half of the game. Explosive Shot is really never that useful for the build, so you don't even have to worry about it. Alright, so the second mercenary in the build is King Krush. He serves two purposes in this build, either generating more minions for your Sylvanas to gain more attack later in the game, or act as a frontline carry so that your opponent actually has to deal with him early on and doesn't focus on the other token generations in this build. The equipment that you use on King Krush is Flaming Claws, which gives him an additional 8 attack. This is the Task 2 equipment for him, I'm pretty sure, and is pretty easy to actually level up along with King Krush, since all you need to do is farm on the PvE level where they take 4 times holy damage. You have the holy synergy farm build. The most useful skills to actually use on him is Devilsaur and Apex Predator, depending on if you want to generate more tokens or do a bunch of more damage to your opponent's mercenaries before late game. If I had to suggest a way to level up this unit in particular, I would say focus on getting the Claws leveled up first, followed by Apex Predator and then the Devilsaur, just because of the fact that sure, while a bigger Devilsaur will do a bunch of damage on its own, you technically don't really need it because you're really kind of only using them for Sylvanas' Redeem Soul mechanic later on in the matches. Alright, so Travish Stormpike is the third mercenary in this build. There are a few uses for Travish in the build. He either generates you a token every turn, or he allows you to have a bunch of AoE damage to your opponent, because most of the current meta builds for mercenaries use a bunch of casters, and thus he'll do double the damage with his ability. The equipment that you want to use is rigged wiring, just because it makes your traps permanent until they're actually triggered, thus making him much more powerful of a unit than without it, and is probably the only equipment that you're ever going to want to use with him. That's probably the thing that you want to level up first. And the second thing that you're probably going to want to level up is the Explosive Trap, followed by the Bear Trap, just because the Explosive Trap allows you to do a bunch of frontline damage and is really useful in early game, along with the Bear Trap also generating a token. You can actually just rotate between these two each individual turn after the first turn, and then do a bunch of damage while generating a bunch of tokens. And he kind of removes the target off of King Krush's back, as this is a unit that a lot of people will rather try to blow up than your King Krush, and that's a third purpose that he can actually serve in the build. Alright, so Old Murk is the fourth unit in this build. He is used for token generation since he has two types of tokens. You could, in theory, use Varun to generate a dragon token instead with Wind Fury over Murk. However, this is a rare mercenary over a epic mercenary, so he's easier to level up and actually get the coins for. For equipment, I could see the argument of using any of them. However, I settled on Bubble One just because it allows you to protect Old Murk even better if you get a invasion off, but most of the time you're just going to be rotating between Elfin Navigator and Giant Fin, since these are the two reasons why you're actually running him in this build, and he's honestly probably the best token generator in the entire mercenary game mode. Cairne is the fifth unit, and the major difference between mine and Wolvy's build. The idea behind Cairne in this build is to speed up Sylvanas so you can actually get her ability off quicker whenever you use Redeemed Souls. You can also use him to slow down the opponent just so you can get more turns with Sylvanas out on the board instead of relying on her equipment. Because of his equipment, Reincarnation, you can actually have him out on the board for quite a long time, and usually he is one of the last units that your opponent's actually going to try to focus down, just because all of the other token generation is a much bigger threat for the most builds currently standing. For important of leveling up skills, however, Endurance Aura is probably the most important, just because this makes your Sylvanas quickest, and Burst Stomp is probably the second ability that you actually want to level up because it's a good AoE and it also makes your opponents much slower. Ancestral Uppercut, again, is something that I don't really ever use, so thus I don't even have it leveled up at all. The final mercenary in the build is the keystone of the entire build, Sylvanas. So Sylvanas has a really interesting skill called Redeem Souls, which makes her gain 5 attack for each friendly character that has died this game. Because you have so many tokens, you usually gain like 50 attack on one use of this. And because of this, there are really two options of equipments that you can actually use. Either Death Volley, which does an AoE to all opponents' mercenaries whenever she dies, thus allowing you to tie up the game. Or you could even use Soul Jar, just so you can gain more additional attack. This is more of a win more equipment than I would say Death Volley is. And Death Volley has the added benefit of actually removing the target on the back of Sylvanas that she normally has, because your opponent's going to want to deal with her last, because of the fact that if she dies, she's just going to nuke their entire board, and if you have a mercenary still alive, you win the game. But if you don't, then you end up just tying, which is better than losing in my opinion. For leveling up skills, you're going to want to level up Redeem Souls first, so you can get as much attack as humanly possible, and that's the whole central idea of this build. Banshee Bolt is the second most important skill to level up, just because it gets quicker with each level up, and thus allows you to do a bunch of attack damage if she survives for more than 2 turns. And the ability that I usually never use is for the Queen, which is why it's only level 2. I'd rather have the Death Volley leveled up all the way, so you have an AoE board clear on death, and this is honestly the most important thing to actually level up. It's her 7 task equipment, which kind of sucks, but it is what it is. Now with that all being said, let's go find some games. I'm gonna put down the 3 normal units. They're a balanced team, so this doesn't really tell me what they have, except probably Diablo. Okay, this is weird. Huh. I'm assuming the Blink Fox is the problem here? I actually don't know. Uh-huh. Color me confused. We traded 1 unit for 1 unit, which is not something I want to do. Okay, Gruel. Again, color me confused. We're going to put a taunt down, AoE, and then Giant Fin, I guess. Is the idea just to make everything I have super slow, so you like don't have any synergies? Actually, we're just generating the token. Actually, let's do that. We should be able to get at least 2 out of the 3 dead, which means they only have 2 more left, and we should be able to, unless it's Diablo, deal with that, I think. Alright, Sylvanas goes down. Now let's see what the last 2 units are. Oh, that actually might be a problem. We're going to do that and that. Then we're going to use a bear trap. Interesting. So they're going to do something kind of similar. Excuse me? Got an AoE. Don't want to do it like that, but this has to be how it is. Okay, okay. We might be fine here, actually. Bear trap. Because we do have 1 additional unit. Okay. Oh, we do win, actually. No matter what, we win. Because we get the additional bear. Alright, time for a game against a caster build. We're going to play our starting 3. So it's Holy Humans. Okay, so we're killing the Villain. I don't care if Lich King's on the board. Sure, he makes our unit slower and he's our glaring weakness in the deck, but I don't give 2 shits. If we get Villain dead, we have half of the units dead that we need, and we also do a huge chunk to Anduin, which is great. Cairne, okay. We're going to do Rush, Apex, and I think AoE Trap, to be honest. Well, we can still kill the Anduin. I think I'm just gonna focus down Anduin no matter what here. Then have a token. Lich King's actually pretty close to dead too, so that's pretty good. Alright, now that the Anduin's dead, I'm gonna rearrange that there. Oh look, Diablo. Actually, that's a Diablo that we can actually manage to kill. Holy shit. Let's focus the Cairne down. AoE. Sure, you're gonna make everything faster. And we're gonna get nuked. But we have our own Cairne. Alright, we got the Cairne down, which means it doesn't attack or use its skill. Okay, okay, this is looking good. Oh, I forgot Lich King can actually heal. We're just going to focus this down. I think that's enough damage to actually kill the Diablo this turn. And they should be a lot slow. Actually, that's just a waste of endurance. You should always be quicker this turn. Or not. Okay. This. We should win in this position, actually. All we need is Cairne to make them slower. Yeah, we should just win. Because that's 44 damage. And Cairne only has 22 HP. Oh, I forgot that could actually happen. But we do still win. Alright, so we found a game finally. We're going to put down Rexxar. We're going to put down Rexxar first, then King Krush, then Travish. The fact that they have one of each type of unit doesn't really tell us anything. And by one of each, I mean two of each. Oh look, it's the Mr Smite combo, I think. Oh, with Diablo attached behind it. Okay. We're going to try to focus down on Diablo first. I think that should be the default it will start at. No matter what, just because of the Rexxar going first. Yeah. We might not be able to kill Diablo this turn, but we should be getting pretty damn close. So they're going to have some type of taunt up next turn. We're just going to play a bunch of rush and then use our... Actually, let's just aim shot. We could AoE, but at the same time, I'm pretty sure they're going to try to speed up their entire board. Maybe they'll try to use Overboard with this combo, actually. Okay, so they are using Overboard. That's kind of a shock. We're going to kill the Diablo, which is great. We're going to kill one of our units. That's not the best thing that could have happened in the world, but it isn't the worst either. Samuro. So we're just going to have a continuous Congo line of units that we don't actually want to deal with in this build. I'm assuming the last two units then are probably Vol'jin and Nataline. I think those two would fit if you're trying to make the most annoying build in the world. Okay, they're doing what I thought they were going to do last turn. That's fine. Killing Krush doesn't really matter too much to us. We'll get a bear trap, then we'll use Felfin, and then we'll attack. And let's use a War Stomp, actually. So that's going to go off a bunch, actually. The good news is they're not a build that can actually buff it up a bunch, so it's not going to see that much damage, but still kind of annoying. We now have Sylvanas out. I think we just bear trap here again. Oh, Millhouse. That's different. We'll do endurance and then we'll gain a bunch of attack. If we can get the Cairne off the board, then that's pretty good. Just barely missing the timings with Travish is kind of sad. We're gonna do this, and then we're going to... Yeah, might as well kill as many units as we possibly can here. Alright, so we actually just win no matter what, depending on how we do this. Oh yeah, no, we just win. We'll do this, and then we'll attack with her. So we win. Alright, now that we're through some games, let's discuss my final thoughts on the build. So the build is really fun to actually play, but there is one glaring weakness with the build, which is a Diablo, a black soul stone. This equipment makes all your tokens actually into buffs for Diablo, which is the most annoying unit in the entire metagame currently, and a lot of people are actually running this combination. I don't know if it was because people were running token variant builds, and this was their solution to it, but it definitely is a glaring weakness and it's worth mentioning. I would say once Diablo falls out of favor in the actual meta, which I don't know if that's going to happen anytime soon unless he gets nerfed, this build is honestly going to be probably a tier 1 contender, but right now Diablo is going to keep it from actually being a tier 1 mercenary build. Either way, it's still really fun to play. The idea of just buffing up Sylvanas and actually getting the combo off with the Death Rattle and winning the game that way is really fun. And being able to just generate a bunch of tokens when they don't really have that much synergy in between themselves besides that, it's also a really cool idea, and I'm glad that Wolvy actually suggested the idea in the comment section. And like always, if you enjoyed the video, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. And until next time, bye bye.